This week on Enemy Sidelines, presented by Microsoft Teams, my good friend Marisa Contipelli. She's the team reporter for the Cincinnati Bengals, coming off the big Monday night win, which we all watched. Marisa, I'm sure spirits are high in Cincinnati, despite having such a crazy, unexpected season and disappointing, probably to say the least. But what has that done for sort of the mood of the team just heading into these final 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, Deepi, thank you so much for having me on with you today. I mean, you wouldn't think that this team was only a 2-win team going into Monday night the way that they played. And I mean, talking to players afterwards, they were very blunt about it, saying they needed that type of win. They needed to show that they could not only keep up with, the division leaders in the AFC, but that, they can go out and win a primetime game because, the track record had not been on their side when it comes to, playing in the national spotlight. So getting a win like that and going out and playing the way they did with the defense stepping up when they absolutely needed to. And honestly, I think that's the best all around defensive game that they've had this entire season. And so spirits are high. It was a great mood, talking to players after the game Monday night and, going into the rest of the week, just kind of absolutely the momentum that they want to take as, there's 2 games left of the season.
Yeah, and you mentioned the defense. I will get to the defense in a minute, but the quarterback situation, how crazy has that been for Cincinnati? Because when the schedule came out, we were sort of penciling in Joe Burrow as an exciting QB to watch. And we all know what happened with him. He went on IR, but it's been Burrow, it's been Brandon Allen, and then in Monday night's game, Ryan Finley at quarterback. Didn't put up great numbers, but still came out with a big win, had a rushing TD. What do those 3 quarterbacks do differently? Because between Allen and Finley now for the final stretch of the season, are they very similar? Does it change the offense a lot with those 2 in the game?
Right. Well, obviously, I mean, just starting off with Joe Burrow, we all know what Joe Burrow can do. He does pretty much everything pretty excellent and, was really making strides during his rookie season. So it was absolutely devastating to see him go out with the injury. But then when you look at Ryan Finley, I mean, this is a guy that had 3 starts his rookie season last year, but Monday night, really, I think he looked as comfortable as he's ever been, playing in an NFL game. The stats aren't going to quite speak to, I think, just the way he kind of had command of the offense and really just kind of, took on that little bit of a leadership role when, you have a guy like Tyler Boyd who's going out with an injury and AJ Green only had 2 catches in that game. And so, a lot was put on Ryan Finley's shoulders and, he did what he had to do. They got the run game going and he just kind of had that comfort and command of the offense. And you mentioned he had the rushing touchdown, being able to use his legs and athleticism a little bit more, I think is kind of what separates him a little bit from Brandon Allen. When you look at Brandon Allen, the coaches really liked what they saw with his two games earlier before he kind of had that knee injury last week. But with Allen, I'd say he's a little bit more of an accurate passer and has a little bit more familiarity with the type of offensive system that Zach Taylor operates. So it's really interesting between the 2 because there's not like a huge drop off, I'd say, between Ryan Finley and Brandon Allen. It's kind of like which quarterback are you going to get on any given Sunday? If you get the Ryan Finley that played Monday night compared to the Ryan Finley that we saw in 2019 at times, completely different guy. He looked so comfortable, and you really hope that he takes that confidence and only continues to excel and get better. But I think the Bengals would be comfortable going with either quarterback on Sunday. We'll just have to see what Zach Taylor decides.
All right. Well, I would imagine that it's got to be tough on the wide receivers. We've seen AJ Green for a number of years. I cannot believe he's still playing at the level that he's playing at. But what sort of challenges has it presented to the wide receivers going through all these quarterback changes throughout this year? I imagine a guy like AJ Green, he's been through a share of quarterback changes, but what's it been like for that group? Have you seen someone just sort of step up and emerge through the forest, through the trees, would you say, with the wide receiver group?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I talked to AJ about that last week when he had the really good game with Brandon Allen and they connected a handful of times and AJ got into the end zone. And he said, it's part of how life in the NFL goes. And he's a seasoned vet. It didn't even faze him. But you look at a rookie like T. Higgins, who's having a phenomenal rookie season. I don't think anyone expected him to kind of jump in to this offense the way that he has early on. He really hasn't skipped a beat. Obviously with Finley coming in Monday night, they relied on the ground game a little bit more than passing. So, Higgins' stat line didn't really scream much. But the fact that he was still, being a reliable and a consistent target for Brandon Allen when he came in after Joe Burrow, and even a guy like Tyler Boyd, I mean, he's a veteran for this offense too. He just gives so much. He's so dangerous in the slot. You're hoping and relying on him to be another one of those guys that you can kind of call upon and go to in key third, fourth down situations. It's kind of, the running joke around here. Anytime you need a big conversion, you're going to go look towards Tyler Boyd because he's going to come up. He's going to step in to those big moments. And so it's really looking at Higgins and Boyd, coming into their own, no matter who the quarterback is under center for the Bengals. And, with AJ Green, what you're going to get with AJ Green. So it's really about Boyd and Higgins moving forward.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Higgins because he's actually our next gen stat presented by AWS. Among rookies, he has the fourth most receiving touchdowns. He has 5 for the season. So I know it's been such a crazy year for rookies in a pandemic and the shortened, abbreviated offseason. But what is it about Higgins that has made him such a target for touchdowns this year? And what do you attribute his success to?
Right. Well, I've talked to our wide receiver coach, a handful of times about T. Higgins, and he just praises his natural, not only his athleticism, but kind of his knack for just going and getting the ball, just making a play. I mean, he showed up on the big stage at Clemson when he needed to, and, really hasn't skipped a beat since coming into the NFL. And the thing I've always loved about T from like the moment I got to meet him over Zoom virtually was that, he just has that confidence about him that you don't always get when you have, a rookie coming in trying to prove their own and earn a spot because he had so many veterans kind of ahead of him, even though he was a second round draft pick this year. And so, T's just really coming into his own. And each week you can see how much more comfortable he's getting with the offense. And, him and Joe Burrow spent a lot of time over the summer, just, phone calls, texting, getting to know one another and making sure they were comfortable with one another, even though they weren't able to be in person throwing routes and just getting used to one another and kind of, what their personalities and knacks are on the field. It's just a great sign that, T seems to be going above and beyond, and his play is speaking for itself. He's also really close to breaking 2 of the Bengals rookie receiving records, most receptions in a season, and becoming just the 3rd Bengals rookie to hit over 1,000 yards. And AJ Green and Chris Collinsworth are the only other 2 guys in that category.
Oh, impressive. All right, let's talk about the Bengals run game because no Joe Mixon, but Giovanni Bernard stepped up nicely in that win over the Steelers on Monday night. It does seem like the Bengals have a short list of backs that they turn to get the run game going, but have any of those guys really separated themselves, and how are they different? What do you foresee for Sunday's matchup against the Texans?
Yeah, I would expect a lot of Giovanni Bernard and Samaje Perine. They really like to use Perine when it's kind of a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 situations where it's just getting those tough couple of yards. But Giovanni Bernard's really the feature back when Joe Mixon's not in the game. I mean, Gio is so he's so lethal when it comes to the pass game too. I mean, he has the most receptions of any Bengals running back in team history. And so he's always been, really efficient when it comes to his pass catching abilities and kind of making plays and helping out the quarterback when he needs to. And so he's a very different type of runner than Joe Mixon is. With Mixon, you're going to see a little bit more flash and finesse at times. And Gio, he's going to put his head down and, get those tough yards. So the Bengals, the fact that they relied on the run game so much Monday night is a great sign moving forward, because we hadn't really seen a whole lot of that, especially early on in the season with Joe Burrow. I mean, it was pass after pass after pass, but if they can get settled into the run game a little bit more, get that more comfortability for the quarterback, whether it's Ryan Finley or Brandon Allen, who's going to be going on Sunday, it's just going to absolutely just help this offense try to, get going a little bit more.
All right, so when you mentioned Perine, I can't help myself but to think about the NFL Combine when he put up a crazy number of reps at bench press. I want to say it was like 38, or it was over 30, but it was a crazy number for running back. I just remember standing there and just being like, I don't know who's going to get this guy, but he is crazy strong. All right, let's talk about that Bengals defense, because they took on DJ Reader this offseason. Big loss for the Texans front. He goes out with a season-ending injury, but Carl Lawson on the D-line has definitely stepped up. What's made him so effective on that D-line, especially as a pass rusher? He's put up some pretty impressive stats this year.
Yeah, well, if you ask anyone who's watched Carl Lawson over the last couple of years, it's really not a surprise. The biggest thing that Lawson was facing was he was kind of injury plagued over the last 2 years. Had a torn ACL in 2018, and then kind of a recurring hamstring last year that he's missed time with. So the fact that he's been out there week after week for the Bengals defense has been such a lift. He's so good at just beating his one-on-one matchups, getting around the edge. And even when he's not getting credited, if he's not getting the sack or the quarterback hit, he's still generating pressures and creating other opportunities for some of his teammates like Sam Hubbard to come in or Mike Daniels or Christian Covington. So Carl Lawson is just, he's just been absolutely phenomenal for the Bengals defensive front this year. But, a big thing that really helped them, especially on Monday night, is that the secondary coverage was so strong for this Bengals defense. It was really great to see guys like William Jackson and Darius Phillips kind of, stepping up when they need to, because they've shown flashes at times. That's the biggest thing about this Bengals defense, is that they've been kind of inconsistent. Like, you'll see really strong coverage or a really strong pass rush, but they kind of haven't been able to put it all together for one complete game. So they were finally able to do that on Monday. And, the results spoke for itself, holding Pittsburgh to that first half offense like they did, holding them scoreless there. And so when you have guys that, I haven't even mentioned Jesse Bates and Von Bell, who are just playing out of their minds in the safety positions. I mean, Jesse Bates, cannot believe he was not a Pro Bowler this year, just having, his best season and just his third year in the league. So when the Bengals defense can kind of put everything together the way they did on Monday, and, obviously looking to carry over that momentum against Houston, but it's obviously going to be a tough task when you have a much different quarterback like you have in Deshaun Watson, who can use his feet a little bit more. You just hope that the secondary can kind of hold its own and hold that coverage to allow the Bengals pass rush to kind of get in there.
Well, much like Deshaun Watson, whose rookie year ended in a season knee injury, the same happened for Joe Burrow. We saw a lot of athletes from around the league post up on social media and wishing him the best. But what can you tell us about Joe Burrow's road to recovery? I mean, have you heard much about him since the knee injury and the surgery, and what can you expect? I imagine these two teams, they face each other pretty much every year. So there will come a time very quickly when we do face a Bengals-led team with Joe Burrow under center. But what can you tell us about his rehab and recovery so far?
Yeah, well, so far so good. We haven't really gotten a chance to speak with Joe too much since his surgery happened. He's not in the Cincinnati area recovering. He's out on the West Coast, just getting that relaxation rehab in as he's, try to make as best of a recovery as he can, hopefully ready for the start of training camp. But so far, so good. And, he was even tweeting during the game Monday night that, it's a lot more fun to be playing than actually watching. So he absolutely wants to be out there with his teammates. And he was just gutted when the injury occurred. But, his spirits have remained high. He's still been so involved in all of the Bengals virtual meetings. He's in every quarterback meeting, in most of the offensive meetings. And so, Joe Burrow is just, he's the kind of guy you want to have around in the locker room, whether he's playing or not playing. And so, I fully expect him to do everything in his power to make sure his body is right, his knee is healed, and that he's ready to go when he can be.
It's the beauty of virtual meetings this year. I really feel like in the future, when players are injured and they can't make it to the facilities, that they'd still be able to join via Zoom. I think it's just fantastic. And I hope it's something that, we carry forward even after this pandemic is over and we're back having normal games with fans and both of us at the game.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, looking forward to it. I know it's a crazy week, short week, a holiday week, and a road game, but thank you so much for the time. Marisa Contipelli, team reporter for the Bengals. Thank you so much for joining us on Enemy Sidelines this week.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.